Okay, folks, good morning with Michael J. You're used to Good Morning with Joe. Well, it's Good Morning with Michael J. Got a really big shoe for you today, and we're going to start off with what our topic has been as of late, or it's just a theme of topics as of late. And it has to do with the erosion of democracy in the United States of America and the rise of an autocratic ex-leader that wants to be the new leader again, Donald J. Trump. He wants to rule the world with his friends Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Erdogan's on side in Turkey, and let's see who else. Erdogan's still a bit of a rogue object, but he's in the game plan. Trust me on that. All part of the Green Bay sweep. You heard of the Green Bay sweep? Peter Navarro, over 100 Republican senators. Thing is, most of these senators just don't realize it. The Republican Party's become the party of Donald J. Trump, who's under the finger of Vladimir Putin. Hey, ignorance is rampant everywhere. And, when it comes to greed and power, people sell their souls for a buck, No surprise there. Nobody should be surprised by that. So what we're going to do here, folks, we're going to move to what I consider a pivotal power play in the geopolitical situation that nobody's caught on to yet. And the push is being done by Vladimir Putin in order, this is going to be beyond most people's comprehension, in order to solidify Trump's position within the United States of America, to make Joe Biden look bad, to bring up the profile of Donald J. Trump. They had 4 years together. And, just surprised that Trump got elected to begin with in 2016. He tried his best to. Nobody thought it would happen, but it happened. Now they got a taste of it. Once you get a taste for something, you don't want to give it up, especially when it comes to greed and power, folks. You got to remember that. So let us move to the topic at hand, Ukraine. Yepper doodle. Ukraine. Okay. Take it away, folks. Yepper doodle.
The U.S. is warning that Russia could invade Ukraine at any point now. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is in Ukraine right now.
Okay. She's making a good point. And if you think Russia's not going to invade Ukraine, you got to be kidding yourself. Look what they did with Crimea. It's going to happen. They're moving troops into Belarus. They've already got a foothold for a long time in Crimea. And so Belarus, it's another puppet regime of the Russian Empire. And you have to remember, prior to Zelensky being prime minister of the Ukraine, the previous prime minister or president, I'm not sure how they refer to it in the Ukraine, was another Russian puppet, just like the guy in Belarus is. So Ukraine's being surrounded. And, if you really think sanctions are going to stop the invasion, you are dreaming. You want to stop that invasion? You get your NATO allies to put troops on the other side of the border from the Russians, American presence as well, because I'm going to tell you something. I haven't watched this video yet, but I'm going to tell you something. That this sitting back and thinking diplomatic negotiations is going to work, it's not going to work. Use that time, increase diplomatic relations and communications for time as you move NATO troops right into the border opposite the Russian troops. You get heavy armaments in place. U.S. has got to help also do some of the heavy lifting. You've got the equipment to do it. Get on it right now. You've lost time. Should have started on this 2 weeks ago. Putin's doing this, and a lot of it has to do with bringing up the profile of Donald J. Trump in the U.S. to show Biden's weak. That's one aspect of it. Plus, this guy created the crisis. Gets back to what I was saying before. Create the crisis, provide the fix, and then you go into denial. We had the right to do it. So all of a sudden, the guy that you invaded, which was a good guy, always was a good guy, you make him out to be the bad guy, and you fix the situation and deny every other factor that doesn't play into that narrative. That's just the way they work, folks. That's the way the elites work. They've been controlling populations around the world for a long time that way. This is the way the other elites, Donald J. Trump, Vladimir Putin, Erdogan, Xi Jinping, this is how they operate, folks. They look good, but below the surface, there's a lot of bad things going on. That's right. Just imagine, you're just the average guy minding your own business, the average Joe. You're minding your own business, you go to work every day, you save your money, you buy a house. Then all of a sudden, somebody conveys your property and takes it from you. But they're tied into these elites. They've got tie-ins with elites. And so you try to fight it. And then all of a sudden they start stealing your assets. And then they trump up charges against you to make you look like a bad guy. And before you know it, you're ostracized by everybody. And they've taken everything you own. And it's no different with the bankers. Now you got the inflation boogeyman being the new slogan. And you got to understand, inflation's really not based on any fundamental economic factor other than supply and demand. So it's a really nifty way for the elites to contract the money supply. Then the banks got to call in, steal your assets, and then they'll go back to the same cycle of increasing the money supply. Everything's good, and you're building stuff up again. This is how they got you. They got you by the bag, folks, and you just don't get it. So let's go to the video.
Now says Moscow could launch an attack, quote, on very short notice. Joining us live from Kiev, Ukraine, NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel. Richard, good morning. And
Richard Engel, good old Richard. So here's another thing. Richard, I got to bring this up. He did an expose on Donald Trump's properties down in Panama. And who's the guy he's interviewing? Monty Morris Friesner, economic hitman of the elite. Oh, it's so friggin' beautiful. And they just don't ask all the right questions. So the media is being taken by these guys. Nobody knows who's pulling the strings. And the poor average guy is getting it right up the hoop. Simple as that. All roads do lead to Putin, especially in the United States these days. And anywhere he has his network of oligarchs, that's the way they've been operating for some time. And you're all sleeping. You're all sleeping, and then you're caught up into this divide and conquer. So the average people in the U.S., Midwest U.S., they're fighting amongst themselves, and this is done on purpose to make you do that. This is the strategy, divide and conquer, and you're all pawns to it, and you just do not get it. America, wake up. The world needs to wake up. Let's go back to the video. My diatribe's gone on long enough.
Give us a sense of how ominous this really is, because I'm hearing from many sources that this is a real potential.
Yeah, it's real.
Well, we're seeing a shift now in the conversation. For the last several weeks, U.S. officials, Ukrainian officials have been warning about the buildup of Russian troops. They talked about how in the future Russia could launch an invasion, that Russia is stockpiling these troops on 3 sides of the borders. Now they're saying they're ready. An attack could be launched at any moment. It could come on short notice. So that's why we're seeing this flurry of diplomatic activity. The Secretary of State is here in Kiev right now. He's meeting Ukrainian officials. Then he goes on to Germany, and then at the end of the week on Friday to Geneva to meet the Russian foreign minister after a round of diplomacy last week.
The U.S. has his back.
So the president asked me to underscore.
And this is my point. Use this time to solidify your NATO allies, to get actual troop presence on the other side of the border. 200,000 troops if you can. The more the merrier. This is a game of psychological positioning. And you know how long it takes to move those kind of people and those kind of assets? It takes a long time. You've lost precious time. And once the invasions began, it's too late. You needed to do this, start on this 2 weeks ago. This is the only way of doing it. I know, considering the way things are, it may not seem right, but you don't understand where Putin's coming from, where this is going to be far-fetched for a lot of people. Donald J. Trump are coming from. They don't care. They don't care about the average person. They don't care what happens to people. You're just part of the collateral of what they need to do, and they do not care. So let's go back to the video here.
Once again, our commitment to Ukraine's territorial integrity, to its sovereignty, to its independence.
Blinken earlier met with U.S. Embassy staff discussing contingencies should a wider war break out. Russia has denied reports it's already thinning out its diplomatic staff.
We're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine.
That's
More
correct.
Than 100,000 Russian troops. they claim to be carrying out drills, are positioned along Ukraine's borders to the north, south, and east, where they're also
Do you understand where I'm coming from? This is how you deal with these people. It's the only way it's going to work. Okay, let's go back to our video and see what happens here.
That the possibility of war is real. Mika?
NBC's Richard Engel, thank you very much. And joining the conversation to continue on this, we have Pentagon correspondent for the New York Times, Helene Cooper, and former NSC Director for European Affairs and Executive.
Listen, I don't always agree with Vindman's narrative, but the guy's an honest guy. He wears his heart in his shoulder sleeve, and he says it the way he sees it. So let's see what he has to say here.
Board member for the Renew Democracy Initiative, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. He's author of the book, Here, Right Matters, An American Story. So, Joe, from many different angles, we are hearing that this is heating up, and there doesn't seem to be any sign
Heating
that
up.
Putin wants to pull back on these
It's
threats.
a hot spot, baby.
Well, he wants the United States to make commitments that the United States can't make publicly.
make.
Helene, I've been saying for some time this seems to be a semantics game.
Make the commitment. We need some time to get in position, strengthen our position. Let's stop the bullshit. Make the commitment. Bide the time. And while you're making that commitment, just move your troops in because you're going to protect your position. That's all. Don't worry. We're not going to invade Russia. We love you in Russia. We want love and peace. That's all we want. Okay?
Vladimir Putin wants us to guarantee that that Ukraine's not going to become a member of NATO. At the same time, if you talk to members of the Biden administration, if you talk to leaders in the West, they will say they don't want to make Ukraine a member of NATO because they would be putting Russia into a corner. This is what they all say off the record. So why are we here if, in fact, both sides agree that Ukraine shouldn't be a member of NATO for quite some time?
It's the, million-dollar question, Joe, and it goes to the heart of democracy. You can't order a sovereign country to not be able. I mean, the Ukrainians have expressed an interest.
No, but here's what you can do, folks. Here's what you can do. You've got Zelensky, which is a good guy for a change in the Ukraine. You can work out a deal to have a NATO presence in Ukraine. Do a back deal. Do a back-end deal on the slide. Do you not think Russia's done it with other countries? Do you not think with Turkey, with Syria, these guys will do it. You got to play the same game. You don't understand the people you're dealing with and what their modus operandus is. You really don't get it. You got to step up your game. That doesn't mean you abuse that position. You just protect your position, get yourself into a position of strength so that you can derive something that's going to be fair for all parties. Because if you don't do that, the Ukrainian people are going to suffer because of it. That's just the way it's going to be, folks.
Express their desire to join NATO. They've said they wanted to move closer to the West. It's certainly true that NATO, many countries within NATO, do not want Ukraine joining the alliance, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. But there's a huge difference between saying among friends, this is going to be too provocative right now, and giving a guarantee to Vladimir Putin, which would.
What's the matter with having the Ukraine part of NATO? This is a perfect moment in time. We need love and peace around this world. We don't need autocratic, abusive leaders like Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and we got to work on this Erdogan in Turkey. Like, come on now. Time to smarten up, people. The game is real because it is a game. Life is a game. Trust me.
In essence, be a reward for that sort of bullying behavior. I think that's a tough one for the United States to give ground on, although there's a lot of conversation going on right now behind closed doors among NATO allies looking for ways around this. There was some talk at some point a few
Cut
days
out
ago
the
about maybe some of the
conversation,
countries that
get
are most
yourself into a
opposed
position of
to Ukraine
solidarity
joining
and
NATO just
move
coming out
in
and saying
and
that,
show a
saying
presence
so
to
publicly, or
help the
even going
Ukrainian
as far as
people.
having
Otherwise,
Ukraine
this
perhaps
abuse
say,
just
"We're not
keeps
gonna-"
going
I
on
don't
and
see
on
the
and on.
Ukrainian government going for that. So it is very much a semantic game, but it's more than that as well, because you giving in at that point would give Vladimir Putin, I think, too much of he could declare victory on trying to redraw the maps of Europe and heading us back to a new sphere of Russian interest.
Putin's an egomaniac. Donald J. Trump's an egomaniac. And here's the other thing you're not even considering. This guy, Trump, in the Republican Party, he holds the strings to the Republican Party. And while all this is happening, and this is why the voting rights issue in the U.S. is so friggin' important, you need to double down on democracy, otherwise you're going to lose it. Because the Republican Party is beholden to Trump. Trump is beholden to Putin. Simple. That's it. No other way of looking at it. This is the reality, and you just don't get it. The population of the Midwest has been hoodwinked into thinking that this guy Trump is like the statue that Edward G. Robinson held up in the Ten Commandments. Do not idolize this guy. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Elon Musk, do not idolize him. You don't understand what's going on behind the scenes that you do not see. Time to wake up, America.
Yielding to Russian demands is not going to end this. Because Ukraine is making progress on its own, because Ukraine is becoming more of a sovereign, independent state, has growing military capabilities, has a consolidation of national identity, all of these guarantees, all they do is offer to Putin this idea that he could act with impunity. He could still conduct this military operation in spite of all these guarantees, because he doesn't end the threat with guarantees. He ends the threat through achieving a failed state in Ukraine. But why is this important to the American public? It's important because we're about to have the largest war in Europe since World War II. There's going to be a massive employment of air power, long-range artillery, cruise missiles, things that we haven't seen unfold on the European landscape for almost 80 years. And this is not going to be a clean or sterile environment. We know that Eastern European allies want to help. We have the UK offering both training and weapons to the Ukrainians. So it's not going to end just simply with Russia attacking Ukraine. There's a very good possibility that other European allies do get pulled in. And this means that there's an increased threat of a confrontation between Ukraine and the NATO alliance, Ukraine and the U.S. This is what we're trying.
You got to remember, folks, JFK, during the Cuba crisis, took it right to the limit, would not back down. And eventually Russia pulled their missiles out. We're in the same situation right now. So let's get it together. Solidarity amongst the good guys to make sure that we keep the bad guys. This is what you need to know. We got to keep the bad guys in their playpens in order to, hopefully, at some point in the future, these bad guys start becoming better guys. That's all we want. They're not our enemy. They're our brothers. But they have these characteristics that they exhibit because the pursuit of power based on greed and power on the ego is more important until they learn And they will come to the side of good eventually. May take a few lifetimes, but they're going to get this way. So why does the rest of the world have to suffer because of a few? And this is my point. Love and peace is the most important thing, and it can be done in such a way nobody needs to get hurt. Okay?
Trying to avoid. That's why this administration needs to take such a firm position to defend U.S. interests, to avoid a confrontation that this massive confrontation that draws the U.S. in. And that's why they need to be talking about more than the diplomacy.
Damn, after watching this, I think I'm going to have to friggin' load up some more espresso.
Coherence to the U.S. and to allies, both on sanctions, on the kinds of support that we're prepared to offer Ukraine, but not nearly potent enough with regards to the pressure track.
Right.
Offering troops to Eastern European allies. So these are where our obligations lie. Posture changes there to reassure them, to warn Russia what happens when they do attack, that they're actually precipitating this kind of security dilemma, the positioning of troops, more weapons in Ukraine that further deter them, and really sanctions. And this Menendez bill that was introduced last week is maybe one of the most potent tools that we have right now to avoid this confrontation, because it's so encompassing, it's so broad.
Okay, here's another thing, folks. You have to take it seriously, because I'm going to tell you one thing. There's one thing that will be consistent at all times for Vladimir Putin and this Donald J. Trump. And it's this right here. They're just going to friggin' keep pushing this. And this is what we call a diatribe of bullshit. That's all you're going to get from Putin. That's all you're going to get from Donald J. Trump. Understand that and get over it. Okay. Hopefully that releases a little tension. You got to remember, how many people here can name the three wise men? Not many. But I'll tell you. Larry, Curly, and Moe. Okay? Back to the video.
Includes things like Lend-Lease, where we could give even more potent capabilities to the Ukrainians. This is what Russia is causing. These, in their entirety, may have a small chance of still affecting the Russian calculus. I doubt it at this point. We're almost locked into a course of action.
Willie Geist.
Wow, Colonel Vindman, you say we're locked into a course of action. You kind of answered my question, which is you've seen a lot of this. You've seen these threats. You've seen Russia and Putin deliver on these threats before, sometimes to back away from them. So on
weeks. The last pieces of the puzzle are coming together with force flows, and both in terms of putting the forces in place for all this multi-vectored attack from north, east, and south. Those when we see the troop presence to follow on the equipment arrive, when we see the.
Okay, folks. So as I said, I'm not going to keep pounding the drum. It's time to wake up, people. You've been played big time for a long, long time. It's time to wake up. Remember, love and peace. So love and peace. Take care. Gonna call it a day. Michael J. All the best, folks.